Henrik feels the rope before he understands the shape of the day. It bites into his ankle with a steady, grinding pressure, the kind that does not start as pain but becomes pain because it never stops. Hemp fibers twist against skin. Skin gives way. And somewhere beneath that, the rope keeps searching for something harder. Bone. He is 30-1 years old. 17 days ago, he was still a master blacksmith with soot under his nails and heat in his face from his own forge. Now he is upside down in the market square of Strasbourg, hanging from a wooden frame built for one purpose: to make a human body last longer than it should. Blood rushes into his head with every heartbeat. It does not feel like life. It feels like pressure, like someone is filling his skull with hot water and sealing it shut. His eyes pulse. His vision throbs red, then clears, then throbs again. He can taste iron in his mouth. It might be blood. It might be fear. At this point he cannot separate the two. Below him an assistant scatters sawdust in a neat circle like a craftsman preparing a floor for work. The motion is casual, practiced. The smell rises into the air, dry wooden resin, mixy with sweat from the crowd and the sour breath of too many bodies packed together. Henrik hears the crowd before he sees it clearly. Hundreds of voices, maybe more. A city making itself into one single front. People arrive early for a spectacle. They bring food. They bring children. They bring curiosity disguised as civic duty. The magistrates promise them something they will remember. They promise them the most impressive execution in living memory. Henrik's arms are bound behind his back with leather straps. They cut his wrist where he fought them at first, then stopped fighting when he understood it changed nothing. His legs are spread and tied separately to the beam above him. The position is not random. It is measured. It is a design. He cannot turn his head far enough to see the tool that matters, but he glimpsed it during the sit-up when they lifted him and adjusted the ropes. A-man timber saw. Long, heavy, teeth like small chisels. Sharp enough to cut out beams. Sharp enough to cut him. He tries to swallow. His throat feels too narrow. He thinks of his wife Marguerite. He thinks of her hands, flour-dusted when she bakes, or cold from laundry water in winter. He does not know where she stands in the crowd, but he knows she came. She said she would come. She said she would not let him die without a familiar face somewhere in the world. Their children were forbidden from attending. The eldest is 12. The youngest still asks questions like the world is kind. The city thinks it is protecting them. But Henrik knows how stories travel. They will hear about today from mouths that do not love them. They will hear details turned into jokes. They will hear their father reduced to a lesson. He owned a house near the cathedral. He paid his taxes. He attended mass. He helped patch the walls when the city called citizens to carry stone and mortar. His forge made fine blades. Not just weapons. Tools. Plow parts. Hinges. Nails. The quiet metal things that keep a life together. He did everything a good man is supposed to do. And yet here he is hanging upside down because he refused one order. He refused to forge weapons for an army marching toward a war he believed was wrong. It is such a simple sentence, and it carries him towards something so large he cannot hold it in his mind. He keeps trying to place his crime inside a clear-shaped disobedience. Contempt, sedition, but none of those words capture what he actually did. He did not plot rebellion. He did not speak against the city. He did not call men into the streets. He said only quietly, to the wrong people, "I will not help you kill." The rope creaks as his body shifts. His stomach twists. Being upside down makes everything feel borrowed. Breath is heavier. Spit runs the wrong way. Thoughts arrive and slide away, as if his mind is also inverted. A man steps into his line of sight. Master Conrad. Everyone in Strasbourg knows the executioner's name even if they pretend they don't. People in church talk about sin, but they still ask how cleanly Conrad swings a blade. They still compare his work to other cities' work, like they are discussing carpentry. Conrad is not dressed like a monster. He looks like a tradesman, which makes it worse. Mid-aged. Broad shoulders. Hands that know weight and grip. His face is calm in the same way a mason's face is calm when he lines up a stone. It is not joy. It is not hatred. It is a kind of steady focus. The assistant stands with him, younger, tense, eyes flicking toward the crowd and back. The saw rests on a stand. Henrik can't see the teeth now, but he knows they are there. He can feel them in his imagination the way you feel a storm before it arrives. Conrad steps closer and speaks in a voice that is meant to carry. "It is time," he says. The words do not shake. The world does. "Do you wish to make a final statement?" Henrik tries to speak and hears his own voice come out wrong. Upside down, his throat cannot do what it usually does. The pressure in his head makes speech thick, like he is talking through cloth. He knows what the crowd expects. He knows what the priest told him. He knows what dying properly is supposed to sound like. So he performs. "I forgive those who condemned me," he says. He does not know if he means it. He does not know if forgiveness is even possible in a place like this. A place where men bring children to watch him and I in pieces. "I ask forgiveness from those I have wronged. I commend my soul to God's mercy." Ritual words. Safe words. Words that protect his family from extra punishment. Words that help the city pretend this is justice rather than power. Conrad nods once, almost respectfully, and steps back. He gestures to his assistant who takes the far handle of the saw. Conrad grips the near handle. "May God receive your soul," he says. Henrik wants to close his eyes. He wants to disappear into prayer, but he forces his eyes open because something inside him refuses to surrender the act of witnessing his own life. The saw touches him. At first it is only contact, cold metal, pressure at a place on his body he has never imagined as vulnerable in this particular way. Then the first pull. There is no good language for what the body feels when it realizes it is being treated like wood. His sound is immediate. Not a word. Not a prayer. Something raw, something that does not belong to speech. The crowd reacts. A wave of motion like the square itself flinches. Some lean forward. Some lean back. Some laugh because laughter is how they protect themselves from admitting what they are watching. Conrad and the assistant move the saw in a rhythm. Back and forth. Back and forth. Not rushed. Not slow. Controlled. Like they are cutting through a beam for a building. Henrik's world becomes smaller. It shrinks to the movement of the saw and the pressure in his head and the fret. But his lungs keep insisting on breath, even when he cannot imagine any future worth breathing for. The inverted position does what it was designed to do. The blood in his skull keeps him awake. It pins his mind to the moment. He does not pass out quickly the way a man might in a normal execution. That is the point. That is why the frame was built. That is why the ropes are tied the way they are. This method is not just about death. It is about time. It is about dragging time out until it becomes an instrument. Henrik tries to find Margaret's face. He tries to focus on one point in the crowd, one piece of familiarity. But his eyes refuse to obey. They water. They blur. They pulse with reed. He sees shapes. Colors. A flash of blue somewhere. Or maybe he imagines it because he needs to. His thoughts break apart into fragments. The smell of his forge. His son running into the workshop with a scraped knee. The way Margaret's hair looks when she unpins it at night. The magistrate's voice in the courtroom. Calm as if sentencing a man to hours of suffering was no more than setting a fine. "You have asserted that your conscience outweighs lawful command," the magistrate said. "That is a threat to order." Order. Henrik wants to scream the word back at him. He wants to ask what kind of order requires a man to be destroyed in public because he refused to make tools for slaughter. But his mouth cannot make arguments now. His mouth makes only what his nerves demand. He hears someone near the front wretch. He hears a child cry and a parent hush them sharply, not with comfort, but with annoyance. He hears a man say, too loudly, "Look at him. Look how long he lasts." As if endurance is a sport. As if suffering is proof of anything except that the body is stubborn. Conrad's face remains steady. That steadiness is its own violence. It says this is normal. This is work. Henrik understands something then with a clarity that cuts through panic. The execution is not only happening to him. It is happening to everyone watching. The city is being trained. This is a lesson that does not end with his death. It ends when the memory has settled into their bones and becomes part of how they think the world is supposed to function. Obey, do not question. Do not refuse. Because if you refuse, they will not merely kill you. They will use you. They will turn your body into an argument. They will turn your death into entertainment. They will turn your family into a warning that walks around the streets afterward. Back and forth. Back and forth. Minutes stretch until they feel like hours. Then Henrik realizes with horror that hours are exactly what this is meant to be. He tries to pray. He tries to say the words Father Johannes drilled into him. Simple phrases, short prayers, anything to keep his mind from running into the same wall of fear. But the mind does not obey either. It keeps returning to one question, stubborn and unbearable. If God is watching, what is he learning from this? At some point Henrik cannot tell whether he is making sounds or merely thinking them. His body moves against the straps. The leather bites deeper. His wrists burn. His legs tremble. The ropes his ankles grind. And then, in the middle of the rhythm, he hears something else. A voice from below, close to the scaffold. Not loud. Not performative. Not part of the spectacle. A woman's voice. His name. Hinrich. He cannot turn far enough to see, but the sound strikes him like a head. It is Marguerite. It has to be. No one else says his name that when. No one else carries both love and fear in a single syllable. His eyes jerk toward the sound. He catches a flash of blue again. This time it is real. He tries to speak. He tries to tell her to look away. He tries to tell her he is sorry. He tries to tell her he did what he thought was right. What comes out is a broken breath and a sound that is not language. The saw keeps moving, and somewhere behind the front row, a bell begins to ring. Not the church bell for prayer. A bell used for announcements. A bell used when the city wants attention. Henrik hears the magistrate speak to someone, low at first, then louder, trying to control the moment, because something is happening that is not part of the script. A disturbance. A shift in the crowd. A pressure moving like a wave through bodies. Conrad's hands tighten on the saw handle, not in fear, but in readiness, as if he has learned that executions can change suddenly when crowds change suddenly. And Henry, hanging upside down, blood roaring in his skull, realizes that whatever is happening behind the front row is moving toward the scaffold, toward him, and for the first time since the rope lifted him, he feels something that is not terror. It is not hope, not exactly. It is the sharp, impossible feeling that the story might not end the way the magistrates planned. Not yet. Not in this minute. Not with everyone watching. The disturbance reaches the scaffold before Henrik can understand it. At first it is only sound shouts cutting through the steady roar of the crowd, sharper, more urgent, not the usual market minus, square noise of excitement. Then bodies begin to shift. People turn their heads. A ripple of movement runs outward as those in back try to see what those in front have already seen. Master Conrad pauses for the first time. Not out of mercy, out of instinct. The saw stops mid-minus stroke. The blade stays pressed against Henrik's flesh, held there by two men who have been trained to treat hesitation as dangerous. Conrad looks past the scaffold toward the magistrate, as if waiting for permission to resume, or waiting for an order to do something else. The magistrate, Fear or von Hungerstein, is still in the front row. He does not move back. Men like him do not retreat in public. Retreat reads as weakness, and weakness infects authority faster than plague. He lifts a hand, palm out, a gesture that means silence. The crowd does not give it to him. A woman's scream cuts through everything. Not Henrik's. Not the executioner's. A woman somewhere to the left of the scaffold, near the knot of city guards. And then Henrik hears a new sound that does not belong at an execution. Metal striking stone. A sword hilt against cobbles. A buckle. A dropped spearhead. Something has gone wrong in the line of control. Conrad's assistant swallows hard. His eyes dart from the magistrate to the crowd and back again, like a dog waiting for its master's hand. Conrad keeps one hand on the saw, but his other hand rises slightly not toward Henrik, but toward the belt at his waist where a short knife hangs. Executioners carry blades for reasons that have nothing to do with ceremony. Henrik cannot lift his head. He cannot see what is coming. He can only hear it. Boots fast for a polite approach. The guards at the foot of the scaffold shout orders. The shouting becomes confusion, then anger. Then something breaks, an order shouted and not obeyed. And that is when the magistrate's voice cracks, just slightly, not in panic but in surprise. Hold them, he snaps. They cho LD. He never finishes. A body collides with another body. Someone falls. The crowd surges backward a step, then forward again, drawn by the same instinct that makes men lean toward fire. Henrik's world tilts, not because he moves, but because the scaffold trembles. The ropes creak as weight shifts. The beam above him groans. He tastes bile. The blood in his head pounds harder, furious. as if his body is trying to keep him awake for whatever comes next. Then he hears her clearly. Not just her voice this time. Her name, shouted by a guard. Margaretno. Marguerite. Henrik tries to scream. He tries to twist toward the sound. The straps prevent it. He can only shake against them like an animal in a trap. And the saw, still pressed to him, moves again just a fraction because Conrad and his assistant jolt, startled by the tremor under their feet. Pain flashes white behind Henrik's eyes. Conrad pulls the saw away immediately and steps back, raising both hands, as if to show the crowd he will not continue until the square is under control. That moment of restraint is not kindness. It is self-preservation. An executioner cannot do his work if the city explodes around him. The magistrate forces himself forward. He stands at the scaffold's edge and lifts both arms. Wide, theatrical, a man trying to shape chaos with gesture. This is the judgment of lawful authority, he shouts. This is. A stone hits the void near his shoulder and explodes into splinters. Not aimed with precision. Thrown with furies. The crowd gasps then roars. Some cheer. Some scream. Some push away in fear, suddenly remembering that public violence does not always stay on script. The magistrate freezes for one heartbeat. Stunned not because he is injured, but because someone has done the unforgivable thing. They have answered authority with force. The air of von Hungerstein's face hardens. He turns toward the guards. Era est ethem, he spits. Scizetm. S-A-Z-E. Again, he cannot finish. Because Marguerite is no longer in the crowd. She is on the scaffold. Henrik sees her upside down through a blur of blood and tears and sunlit dust. Blue dress. Hair coming loose. Face pale with a determination that looks nothing like hysteria and everything like a decision made long ago. She should not be able to reach the platform. Not with guards. Not with ropes and posts and a wall of bodies. But she has. And she is not alone. Two men climb behind her, a journeyman from the guild. Faces Henrik recognizes even through the pulsing red haze. One of them is his apprentice. The other is a broad minus-shouldered hammerman he once paid in coin and bread. Their hands are empty, but their presence is a weapon. A guard lunges for Marguerite. The apprentice slams his shoulder into the guard's chest. They both go down hard. The crowd screams again, but this time it is not only fear. It is shock at seeing the pattern break. Conrad backs away another step. He looks to the magistrate for instruction. The magistrate looks to the guards for control. The guards look to the crowd and realize too late that the crowd is not one thing. It is many things. It is sympathy and hunger and resentment and old grudges pressed together. And now it has a single focus. A woman in blue climbing a scaffold to reach her husband. Marguerite reaches Henrik's side. She grips the rope near his ankle with both hands, as if she can hold him in the world through sheer force. Henrik, she says, and her voice is steadier than his mind can comprehend. Listen to me. He cannot answer. His mouth makes a sound broken half-sob, half-breath. I'm here, she says. I'm here. Look at me. His eyes find her. He locks onto her face like it is the last solid thing left in the universe. Below them, fear von Hungerstein screams again. Jeta, Badown, Getrdon, Gether. A man in the crowd shouts back, loud enough to carry. Hed, Idntstil. Hed, Idntkil. Hewouldntm. Akeswords. Another voice joins. Hesasmith. Notatraitor. Another. Shame. The word spreads like flame through dry straw. Shame. Not toward Henrik. Toward the men who built this scaffold and called it justice. The magistrate's eyes widen. He understands what is happening. A public execution is a message. If the crowd refuses the message, the state looks weak. If the crowd flips the message, the state looks ridiculous. And ridicule is poison. He points at Conrad, furious. Finishit, he commands. Now. Finishitbefore. Conrad does not move. He hesitates just long enough for the magistrate to see something he has never wanted to see in a man like Conrad. Choice. Executioners are supposed to be instruments. not minds. Tools with hands. They do not decide. They perform. But Conrad is a craftsman. He knows what a craftsman recognizes when he sees it. A moment when the job stops being work and starts being a trigger. Conrad looks at the crowd. Looks at the guild men climbing the scaffold. Looks at Marguerite holding the rope like it is a lifeline. Looks at Henrik's face. Inverted, blood minus flushed. Eyes wide with terror and love and something stubborn underneath. Then Conrad does something that makes the square go quiet in disbelief. He sets the saw down. Not gently. Not dramatically. Simply places it on the stand as if he is finished with it. The magistrate goes rigid. "What are you doing?" he snarls. Conrad's voice carries, calm but firm, the voice of a man who has spent his life around authority and knows how to speak to it without kneeling. "My duty is to carry out lawful sentences," he says. "It is also my duty to keep order during executions. This square is no longer under control." The magistrate's face reddened with rage. "You will obey." Conrad cuts him off. "If I proceed now, the scaffold may be stormed. The condemned may be torn loose. Guards may be killed. The city will remember not justice but right. That will not serve your order." The word lands like a slap. The magistrate's mouth opens, closes, opens again. He looks around desperately for the clean line of power he had walked into the square with. It is gone. Power is still here, guards with weapons, officials with authority, but the emotional tide is shifting, and everyone can feel it. Margaret leans close to Henrik, her mouth near his ear. "We cannot free you," she whispers fast and fierce. "Not now, not like this, but listen, it's." A guild man on the scaffold shouts down to the crowd. "Bringtechcouncilmen." Another voice answers. "Theprests. Getfathe. A joa cherry. And nes." Suddenly names are being thrown like ropes. People are calling for witnesses, for authority figures who carry moral weight, the magistrate to not easily crush without consequences. The square becomes a contest of symbols. The magistrate has law. The crowd has conscience. And in the middle, hanging upside down, Henrik is no longer only a condemned man. He is a test. Margaret grips the rope tighter. "They wanted you to die as an example," she breathes. "But you are becoming a different example. Hold on. Just hold on." Henrik cannot hold on with his hands. They are bound. He cannot hold on with his legs. They are tied. He cannot even hold on with breath, because breath keeps slipping. So he holds on with his eyes. He holds on to Margaret's face. Below then, Vera von Hungerstein takes a step backward for the first time, and catches himself, furious at his own movement. He points at the gods again, voice shaking with urgency now. "CLEA or THESCIFFOLD. SCACETMALL. CLEAR." And then Father Johannes appears at the edge of the crowd, pushed forward by hands that treat him like a shield. The priest's face is pale. He looks up at Henrik and sees exactly what is happening, a sentence turning into a public crisis. He raises his cross not like a weapon, but like a claim. "In the name of God," Father Johannes calls out, voice ringing, "STOP." The crowd quiets again, not because they fear the magistrate, but because they recognize the priest as a boundary the magistrate cannot cross easily. Father Johannes steps closer to the scaffold. His eyes flick to Conrad, then to the magistrate. "This execution has become disorder," the priest says. "And disorder in God's name is still disorder. If you insist on spectacle, you may create bloodshed among the living, not only the condemned." The magistrate's jaw clenches. He is trapped between outcomes, all of them bad. If he halts the execution, he looks weak. If he continues, he risks riot. If he attacks the priest, he risks the church. If he arrests Marguerite in front of everyone, he risks making her the next symbol. And if Henrik dies now, with this crowd watching the struggle, Henrik becomes exactly what the state fears most. Not a criminal, a martyr. Conrad waits, hands empty, expression unreadable. Margaret stares straight down at Vera von Hungerstein with a steady hatred that does not need words. Henrik hangs upside down, blood pounding in his skull. The saw waiting nearby like a promise the city is suddenly unsure it wants fulfilled. And then at last, the magistrate makes a decision that will shape everything that follows. He lifts his hand and speaks, forcing his voice to carry. This sentence, he says tightly, is suspended. A roar explodes from the crowd, half relief, half triumph, half disbelief. Suspended is not reversed. Suspended is not mercy. Suspended is time. And time, Henrik understands with sudden clarity, can be a weapon for the state as easily as a saw can. Because now, instead of dying today, he will be taken back into darkness. And the magistrate will have nights to plan what to do with a man who just turned an execution into a political threat. Conrad steps forward immediately and begins giving orders like a man who knows how fragile this pause is. Lower him, he tells his assistant. Slowly. Don't drop him. Ropes creak again. Henrik feels the world tilt as he is lowered inch by inch. The blood pressure in his head begins to shift, and with it comes nausea so intense he almost blacks out anyway. Margaret stays close, reaching for him, trying to touch him even once, even with fingertips, even briefly. A god grabs her arm. Another reaches for the guildmen. The crowd surges again, angry at the idea of punishment spreading outward. Father Johannes steps between bodies and raises his voice. Enough, he commands. Enough. He is alive. That is what you demanded. Now let him be taken without more blood. The gods, suddenly aware of thousands of eyes, slow their hands. Henrik's face passes close to Margaret's as they lower him. She whispers, so fast it is almost nothing. They can't kill you in daylight now, she says. So they will try to kill you in the dark. Don't trust the dark, Henrik. Don't trust it. Then she is pulled back. The scaffold empties. The saw remains on its stand, clean enough to prove it never truly began. Henrik is carried away, half-minus conscious, head swimming, wrists burning, ankles raw. And the square behind him is still roaring, not because justice was served, but because the crowd tasted, for one breath of a day, what it feels like when power hesitates. And in the courthouse dungeon beneath Strasbourg, the magistrate will decide how to punish a man whose conscience just embarrassed the city. Not with a saw. Not yet. With something quieter. Something that leaves fewer witnesses. They take Henrik back underground. Not to the cell he knew. Not to the one with the wooden platform and the small mercy of a bucket emptied daily. They take him deeper. The magistrate does not follow. Men like Veer or von Hungerstein do not descend when power can operate without witnesses. Two guards drag Henrik through corridors that smell older than the city above them. The stone he sweats. The air is cold and metallic, thick with rotten damp iron. His head is still spinning from inversion. Blood sloshes painfully behind his eyes. Every step sends nausea up his throat. He's barely conscious when they throw him into the room. No window. No platform. Just stone, darkness, and a ring bolted into the wall. The door closes. The lock slides home. The sound echoes. Henrik understands something then that terror could not fully reach before. The scaffold was honest. It was cruelty, yes, but it was visible, finite, measured. This place is not. Hours pass, or minutes. Time collapses when there is nothing to measure against. His ankles throb where the rope cut into them. His wrists are numb, then burning, then numb again. His body trembles as blood pressure finally settles back into its proper direction. Eventually footsteps, not hurried, not heavy, measured. The door opens. A single torch lights the room. The flame reveals Vera or von Hungerstein standing just outside the threshold, hands folded calmly at his waist, robes immaculate. He does not enter. He does not need to. You embarrass the city, the magistrate says, as if commenting on the weather. Henrik tries to speak. His throat produces only a rasp. The air continues anyway. Executions are not only punishments. They are instruction. What happened today was not instruction. It was chaos. Henrik's visions wins, but he focuses on the magistrate's face. Your wife, Vera says casually, is fortunate. Henrik's chest tightens. Some men would have made an example of her. I chose restraint. For now. The words land precisely where they are meant to. You see, Vera continues. You misunderstood the nature of your defiance. You believed you were challenging a command. You were not. You were challenging authority itself. Authority cannot be argued with in public. Henrik swallows. Pain spikes through his throat. So we will not repeat today's mistake. Veer are gestures and two men step into the torchlight behind him. Not gods. Not executioners. Clerks. Men with ink minus stained fingers and ledgers under their arms. The council has agreed, Vera says. Your sentence is commuted. Henrik's heart lurches. Not hope. Not relief. Confusion. Death by sawing, Vera continues, has been deemed impractical. He pauses, letting the word settle. In its place, you will be remanded to ecclesiastical custody. Henrik understands before the words finish forming. Not prison. Disappearance. You will be transferred tomorrow before dawn, Vera says. No crowd. No spectacle. No wife climbing scaffolds. You will be judged again. Quietly. Thoroughly. He leans forward slightly. You wanted conscience to matter. Now it will. For as long as you can endure it. The torchlight flickers. Shadows crawl over the stone. You will not be executed publicly, Vera finishes. You will not be remembered. And your wife will be told that mercy was granted. The door closes. Darkness returns. That night, Marguerite is not allowed to see Henrik. She waits outside the courthouse until the gods threaten to remove her by force. She waits again at dawn. She brings food that is refused. He asks for Father Johannes. She is told he has been reassigned. When Henrik is moved, it is before the city wakes. A cart with no markings. 2 guards who do not speak. A route that avoids main streets. By the time the sun rises over Strasbourg, Henrik of Fribourg is no longer there. Weeks pass. Rumors replace facts. Some say he was sent to a monastery in the Black Forest. Some say he died of injuries from the scaffold. Some say the church intervened and saved him. No one knows. Marguerite writes letters. No answers come. The forge stays closed. The apprentice leaves. Business dries up. Friends stop visiting. Not out of cruelty. Out of fear. Proximity to defiance is contagious. Margaret learns the second lesson of power. It does not need to kill you to destroy your life. Years later, a record appears in a monastery archive far from Strasbourg. A single line. Heinricus Ferrarius. Arrived infirm. Refused recantation. Assigned to silence. Nothing more. No date of death. No burial record. No prayers requested. Assigned to silence. And that is how the system wins when spectacle fails. The saw was meant to terrify bodies. Silence was meant to erase meaning. Henrik is not remembered as a martyr. He is not remembered as a rebel. He is not remembered at all. Except by you. And that is the final cruelty medieval justice perfected. When violence could not break resistance, obscurity would. If this story stayed with you, that is not an accident. History does not only hide its worst crimes behind blood, sometimes it hides them behind quiet. Subscribe if you want to keep breaking that silence. Comment where you're watching from. And remember this the next time power claims restraint is mercy. Sometimes mercy is just a slower disappearance. Years later, Margaret will stop waiting, not because she has answers, because waiting itself becomes unbearable. She sells the house near the cathedral. The forge never reopens. The anvil that once rang from dawn to dusk is sold for a fraction of its worth to a man who never asks, whose hands shaped it. Henrik's stalls are divided. Some disappear. Some are melted down. Iron forgets quickly. She raises the children alone. Johannes learns early what obedience looks like. He keeps his head down. He takes contracts without questions. When soldiers come, he forges what they ask for. He tells himself that survival is not the same as agreement. He tells himself this until the words feel hollow. Then he stops thinking about it at all. Katharina leaves. She marries into another city. She changes how she pronounces her own name so it will not sound familiar to anyone who remembers the market square. When people ask about her father, she says he died of illness. It is not a lie that can be disproven. Peter never recovers. He flinches at loud sounds. He avoids the square. He avoids authority. He avoids decisions. The world feels unsafe in ways he cannot explain. He dies young, and the records do not say why. Margaret lives the longest with the memory. She never describes what she saw. She never says the word saw. But she cannot smell fresh minus cut wood without feeling sick. She cannot hear metal dragged across stone without her hands shaking. She cannot attend executions, even ordinary ones. She crosses herself and looks away. When she dies, no one writes Henrik's name on her grave. Not because she forgot him, because remembrance was dangerous. That is the part history rarely teaches. The punishment did not end when the body was destroyed. It radiated outward. It taught neighbors to stay silent. It taught children to obey without asking why. It taught entire cities that conscience was expensive and authority was cheaper. And it worked. Public sawing disappeared centuries later, not because society became kinder, but because it found more efficient ways to produce the same result. Prisons replaced scaffolds. Files replaced crowds. Silence replaced screams. The principle survived. Power still punishes those who insist that conscience matters more than command. It just does so with cleaner hands. Heinrich of Freiburg did not become a legend. He did not inspire songs. He did not topple regimes. He simply refused, and for that the system erased him as thoroughly as it could. No monument, no feast day, no heroic statue. Only a name buried in court records. Only a wife who learned what silence costs. Only children who grew up understanding exactly how far conscience can take you before power intervenes. If this story unsettled you, that means it worked. Because history is not meant to comfort. It is meant to warn. And the warning is this. The most frightening systems are not the ones that kill loudly. They are the ones that make resistance disappear quietly. Remember Heinrich, not because he won, but because he chose. And that choice still matters.